Crossings is a tool that we use to understand Christianity.
It's a lens, a way of understanding life.
A really dynamic, vibrant community. It began as typewritten pages being handed around a university.
All of my imperfections being smart for generosity.
It's become such a way of life for me.
It really is good, and it is something new.
This year was my first time attending a Crossings conference, and I was introduced to the crossing concept by my pastor, Candace. I was searching for just a additional way to study Scripture, and so I was very intrigued by the opportunity to come to the conference and learn a little more. With the crossing method of studying the Bible, it brought me to a place where I could look at what that passage was saying to me specifically, or maybe to my church ministry, and then looking at that in a different way through the lens of Jesus. So it brought it all the way back around to how he would change what was happening in me that I would recognize in the passage. In my weekly life, I'm a women's health physical therapist, and I specialize in pain neuroscience, and I have become involved in women's ministry at our church and adult education. It's just a passion that I've developed, that God's involved in me over time. I took time to come to this conference because what I have found is when I take opportunities to experience God or look at my theology in a different way, he always brings me to a new place in my faith. So I was intrigued to just experience it and see what a deeper delving into the Crossings method and the speakers that they brought in, what God would have me to hear. This conference has challenged me. I think one of the profound takeaways that I have, actually a couple of phrases that have stuck with me, is that theology is of the earth and not of God, so we have to remember that. And then also that what we're saying is experienced by each ear differently. So we have to think about, as we're expressing our faith and reaching out to people, the words that we're using and the way that we're proclaiming our faith or trying to share Jesus' love. We need to be very aware and mindful of how they're receiving our words. I've been thinking a lot about how I will use what I'm taking away from this conference, and I do utilize the Crossings content that's on their website, so I look at that when I'm looking at the Sunday gospel. But I also was thinking about the opportunities to take that into our adult education classes and just open up a conversation of a new way to look at Scripture and look at that together. I would suggest that people consider coming to a Crossings conference because it really challenges you to look at where you're at in your faith and maybe the comfortable place that you're in, and look at that in a different context. Maybe look at that as a personal challenge to change the way you look at Scripture, or the way you look at your ministries at church, or the way you share your Scripture or expound on it with others. I am going home from this conference with a challenge, I believe, to look at our church and our church community and how we need to look at the margins or the boundaries of those outside of our church and break that wall down and make it more welcoming for them to come in.